Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, Colin. It's good to be back in
Good to be
office
back too.
hours.
Yeah, I'm excited for our theme song that's coming up next week.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to figure out how to play it so people can actually hear. But I'm excited about it. It's fun, it's catchy. I'm
Yeah,
thinking, office hours, LinkedIn dance party, maybe, all right,
yeah,
let's see.
we gotta bring the energy. I think that's what the people want. We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm loving the new background.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love it.
yeah,
I
it's
got you a
looking.
mic.
Yeah, we got mics. We got new backgrounds. I feel like we're really moving up in this office hours. We're our three fans are probably really appreciative.
Yep, yep, yep. I love you to bits. Love you to bits.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
yeah, I'm
yeah,
excited.
I don't know how much clearer my camera is, but I got an upgrade on my video. So I
Your video,
upgraded from a webcam to an actual camera.
oh,
Filming, or shooting right now.
that that's key. That's a big upgrade. I feel like I see you loud and clear. You sound good. You look good. All is good.
Yeah, except now I have to actually press my clothes because now the creases are gonna show. Back then, I didn't have to worry about it. The camera quality wasn't that good, right? But yes, all in service of you listeners, watchers. We want to provide more high quality content for you to make the learning experience a lot better. So hence, we got a mic, extra lighting over here, new camera setup. Yeah, Colin, you always look great. But I'm a long way coming. All right.
No, you always look good as well. And now you look better, sharper. Cool. Well, I'm excited for today's episode. I feel like we got a lot good stuff to talk about. But before we dive in, um, how's your week? All good?
Yeah, yeah, great weekend. Um, or friends from Arrow's Internet Radio came back to Jamaica. So that was fun. We had a little session here in my living room, and we have a potentially new member on the team, to broadcast and produce the shows. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
I also, learned so much about technology, like setting up the camera and the mic and hunting down to find batteries. And it's like it was a mess yesterday. I was on the road all day, and but it all came through. Right, work together. And tomorrow I'm speaking for the first time well, not the first time, but for a company on LinkedIn. Because I mean, we talk about LinkedIn every week, right? But this is an actual paid gig, teaching on sales tools, social media sales tools, and AI. So I'm going to be talking about LinkedIn and some tools you can use to optimize your profile, outreach, etc., personal branding. So it's going to be a good 20 minutes
Nice.
tomorrow.
Cool. Cool. Um, well, good luck. I'm curious to hear how it goes. Are they recording it?
Yeah, yeah, they are. Uh,
Cool.
so
Well, I have a question for you today before we get started. I was thinking about this just because it's kind of relevant towards internally. We talked about last week about building software, putting teams together, LinkedIn. If someone had to ask you, O'Shane, what do you think is your superpower when it comes to your business? What are you better than everybody else at? How would you answer that question?
I listen. I
You
think
listen.
that's my superpower.
You think you listen better than everybody else?
I think so. Why? Because I'm taking notes while I'm doing it. I'm always taking notes, even on a phone call. I'm like typing stuff down, and I can, I repeat things back to who I'm speaking with. Or if I'm on a sales call, I'm sharing screen, and they can see me taking notes live in Google Docs. And so they see that I'm listening. And at the end, I've got a summary, got action steps, and we're ready to move to the next stage. So I'd say listening. I
All
would
right,
say
that's a
active
good
listening.
answer. That's a good answer. I would say for me, because it came up this week, is I feel like the older I've gotten, I've realized that one thing that I feel like I'm better at than other people, just based off of talking with other people, is identifying what people are good fits in certain roles and when people are not good fits in certain roles. Uh,
Hmm.
Especially considering maybe it's my law background or being like a program manager. But I ran into a situation over the last couple of weeks where I've been internally realizing that there's somebody that I've been working with that is not the right fit for the role that he's in. Um, and yeah, dealing with that. Because when you kind of come to the realization that you feel that way about something, how do you execute that? Especially when I feel like you got to go with your gut, right? Like it's if it's not the right fit, putting things in motion to kind of make it feel the right fit has been something that I've been like you know navigating, let's just say, over the last couple of weeks, related to software and software development. But I feel like that's kind of the role that I play, is to kind of like figure out how to put people into the right roles that they can shine in. And if I see that somebody's not shining in the role, it's like, how do you put things in motion to be able to do it? Anyways, more to come on that. I actually feel like it's an exciting transition because in the realizing who's not the right fit also has maybe realized who I think is the right fit. And kind of like navigating that has been something that, has just been on my mind. I was just curious to kind of understand what you thought about yourself and the, reflections that you might have about like, what do you think you're better at than most people? Listening, I see some other things about you that I think that you might be better at than other people beyond listening.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah,
Maybe I think I try to be charismatic because I like, interacting with people, having chats, getting to know people. So
that's funny. That's what I would have said that you thought your answer was going to be. More about being able to, well, I feel like it goes maybe with listening, some type of empatheticness about being able to, you know, get people to feel comfortable, something like that. Listening is probably a part of that for sure. But that's what I would say about you. I feel like you make people feel comfortable.
yeah, all right, cool. Comfort man. I need to get a shirt with a big C.
Which is a great segue to what I wanted to talk about today, because I feel like this is kind of you know the next step in our office hours journey. The last couple of weeks, you recall, we talked about how to source leads off of LinkedIn. Last week, we talked about the networking funnel, an introduction of like, how do you think about getting leads on LinkedIn? And today, I really want to dive more into how do you turn replies into real conversations.
Conversations.
Yeah. And I think that I can tell that you're probably pretty good at this, mostly because you make people feel comfortable. And that's kind of the name of the game. How do you make people feel comfortable? Um, do you have any kind of initial thoughts based off of our conversation last week before we kind of dive into this week's topic?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, uh, relatability. Relatability. It's an innate desire of human beings to want to be a part of the group, the tribe, the clan. It's I think it comes from our our caveman instinct for survival. If you're out by yourself, you're more likely to get picked off by a lion or a tiger or something. Then when you're in a group, you're stronger together. So humans have a great desire to want to be a part of something. So people form communities and groups and tribes. And so if you can find points of commonality that could identify or highlight that you're of a similar tribe or that you're of some similarity in nature or in likes and maybe even hobbies or personality, then people feel a lot more comfortable because in the brain it says, oh, I'm safe here. I'm safe talking with this person because they're more like me than I thought 5 minutes ago. And so I think that's something to always pay attention to in conversations. Some people, I think, find it amusing, I guess, to point out what's different with their opinion and than somebody else's. I'm not excited about it. I'm more excited about finding out what's how do we have similar opinions?
Mm-hmm.
How do we have similar thought processes, or how do we have similar desires, personality traits.
Yeah.
So a great book that I've found that I think shares great perspective is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That book's been written like, I don't know, like 100 years ago. It's like a long time ago. And he was a veteran at helping you to, like the title says, win friends, influence people. Because that's when people are more likely to do business with you, when they know you, like you, trust you. All right. So
That goes back to what I was saying
points of
before.
common interest.
You make people feel comfortable. See, that's your superpower.
That's my
I
super.
yeah,
All right. Thank you.
it's not just listening. See, it's more than that. I'm giving you more credit. I feel like it's more about making people feel comfortable, finding similarities versus differences. Yeah, I think that that's a really good point to people. And I think that when it comes to LinkedIn and having conversations and networking, I think sometimes people lose sight of how do you bridge that connection, right? Because that's basically what you're saying. How do you find the connection? Uh, and once you find the connections, it makes it a lot easier and organic to turn, connections into connections into, you know, conversations that lead somewhere. Yeah, that's a great segue. So um, let's let's start with. I think it's important to kind of realize what are people. What do most people struggle with when it comes to LinkedIn conversations? So we got to
Mm.
start with what people are doing wrong before we kind of explain to them what to do right. So what I like to think about this is how do you master the art of micro conversions on LinkedIn without needing to use pitching or automating? We talked about last time thinking about micro conversions, and this is kind of like the next step of what we talked about last time. So if you kind of master this and understand how to progress and sequence out your actions, then you don't necessarily you can still automate your behavior without necessarily needing to use mass automation or always focusing on pitching. So why this training matters, to me, this is the most misunderstood stage of LinkedIn. I've talked to hundreds of people and trained them on LinkedIn, and I always feel like most people don't grasp what we're going to go over today. And because of that, they usually either stall out or pitch too fast, meaning that they're
Mm.
not involved in a lot of bridging type conversations. Like I know that is your superpower that you can kind of organically do. People just don't have the results to be able to um, make money off of LinkedIn. And that's kind of what we want to go over today. What do you need to do to make sure that you are not uh, everybody else, but you're kind of I like to say the signal amongst the noise, not the noise. Because if you learn this skill, and I call it a skill, the skill of networking, your pipeline grows without necessarily needing to do mass automation, but you can acquire the skill. Um, so why do most people struggle with LinkedIn? Well, they treat it like a cold sales pitch and they're not building on relationships. It's kind of like what you said. How do you win friends and influence people? Well, don't treat it like treat them like people, I would say is what Dale Carnegie would say. Number one, try to build bridges versus trying to find the differences. Find the differences is more like a cold sales pitch. And like we talked about last time, they skip to the conversion instead of trying to learn more about the person. So it's a little bit more
Mm.
transactional than it is about relationship building. And most people, whenever I talk to them and review their messages, what are they saying? I kind of come to the conclusion that they don't really know how to nurture a conversation after the initial hey.
Mhm.
You can automate engagement, but you can't really automate the development of a relationship and building relationship with people. So that's what we want to go over today, kind of hone in on how do you do that? What is the skill to be able to get better at that? So let's start with what not to do. I have a couple examples on the screen. Let's walk through them. These are some typical examples that you'll see that I'm sure are familiar to you or our audience of how people interact with one another on LinkedIn. I get these all the time, like, people reaching out to me saying something like this: Hi, your profile popped up on my
Yeah.
recommendations. So I had a look and decided to connect. Are you open to that? Let's start with this one. What do you think about this one?
Oh my gosh.
You've done this one before?
I ah, Colin. I would never.
Have you received this one before?
I have, and I've had to resort to look not based off their message. I've had to go to their profile to determine if it's of value to connect with them. It feels a little, it feels a little amateur, honestly. I don't think they know why they want to connect with me.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think they do.
I agree, which is why my first comment is that's kind of how I know that they're, you know, you like automated. It's automated because they're automating based off activity, even if it's not like either a tool or they're just doing it because they see something and they're taking action. It's not sincere. Uh, that's because it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to. It's just based off of a preconceived action that they're taking the secondary action, which is to connect. So it's not it lacks personalization. And so what I like to say is if I say yes to this, I feel like I'm about to get pitch slapped, which basically means that they're going to connect and then immediately drive to the conversion, which is why I'm hesitant to wanting to interact with this person because I feel like I'm going to get pitch slapped. It's not personal. Let's go to the second one. How about this one? This is kind of the mutual benefit one. I see we are both in the marketing space, so I thought I'd reach out to offer a free 15-minute consultation. Would you like me to send over my calendar? What do you think about that one?
But immediately, if we're in the same marketing space, why do I need to consult with you? We're competitors, right? So I don't think that was worded very well,
Yeah. Well,
or the targeting is off. But I would be a little hesitant in accepting that one. And why do I want to? I don't even know you, right? It feels a
I
little soon to be.
I totally agree. I mean, not only I mean, I hear you on the targeting probably not being off, but let's say that I sell to marketers, right? Just because you are a marketer. I mean, the targeting might be right, but the
Mhm.
frame is bad because it states the obvious. Even the confusion. It's such a broad statement. It would be a little bit different if they said, "Hey, I see that you're a marketer working with software as a service businesses or building a LinkedIn group, and because of that, I want to connect with you."
Yeah, that's specific.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. But I feel like they're just lumping me into like a massive market that it feels a little bit disingenuous. And then the other element that I think is really important for people to understand is that just because you are offering up your time doesn't mean that that is value to the other person. Um, you know, like you said, if we don't know who you are, why do we want to meet with you? So you're jumping to the conversion way too soon. So these are just general examples, let's just say, of what people do that we just spoke about, like why that's not good. So here's kind of like a third version that is a more demonstrative of what I call the pitch slap, um, which is basically a message that looks like a friendly invite, but it's really disguised as a sales pitch. I find that people think that they're being clever by using language that makes it feel like they're offering value when in reality they're just trying to get the pleasantries out of the way to get to the conversion. So here's an example of that. I came across your profile. I was really inspired by your work. Because of your leadership background, I wanted to share this exclusive free resource. They send you something. Are you currently part of any private professional network? Right. So it's not asking for a meeting. It's a little bit better, just kind of based off of the trajectory of what we just saw before. They're not asking me for a meeting. They're trying to, lead with value. But what do you think of this one?
Hmm. So that's two call to actions inspired by my work. Okay. Feels a little vague, like you could say that to anybody, really. I'm inspired by your work. It's not very specific. So it feels very automated. That feels
Feels
automated. I
fake.
don't think he's
Yeah.
speaking or she's speaking to just me. I think
Yeah.
I'm lumped in. Like you said, the next section of that says, because of your leadership background, I wanted to share this exclusive free resource. Well, if it's free, is it really exclusive? Well, okay, could be. It's debatable,
Could
but
be.
um, but I think they're using keywords to bait me into thinking that it's something of value. I mean, not because it's free and it's deemed exclusive means that it's of value to me and what
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
So I don't think they know me very well, and then I'm not sure what the random link would be. Maybe a website, and then they ask a question So it feels like a lot to respond to.
Yeah.
For example, one is the inspiration that I've, impressed upon you through my work. One, that's something I'd like to respond to. That's one thought. The second thought is this exclusive resource. That's the second thought. And clicking on that. So that's something else I got to do. And then three, a question about being a part of a private professional network. That's three things for me to think about, respond to, and it can be, what's the word, frustrating or intimidating for some people. Like three
Yeah.
things. Like, what do you want me to answer first? I'm either going to answer one thing or no thing at all. It's just too much. So so I think this could have been broken down into several back and forth responses. So first, I'll just start with the first piece. Yeah, I was really inspired by your work, and maybe say why. Then when I get a response, then we can maybe dive into maybe hey, here's a resource then because of your leadership background that I wanted to share. And then after that, then we come back around and, after I've checked that out, then, hey, by the way, are you part of any private professional networks? So this is, I think, three conversations like
Yeah.
smushed down into like one direct message. I don't
You're
think that's good.
yeah. I agree with you, and I just want to point out that that's your superpower. You make people feel comfortable. You have an empathetic nature that you're thinking about the other person, and that's why this comes a little bit more natural to you. And people don't really grasp that when they're doing it. I call this the pitch slap. There's so many things that are disingenuous about this. They doesn't sound like they actually looked at my work, and they're probably I don't even understand why they're inspired by it. Just because something is free doesn't mean that there's value, like you said. Also, if you haven't opened a conversation, how do you know what I find valuable, right? Like you might be wasting my time if I'm not interested in your resource. And then third, the question makes me feel like there's a pitch coming, right? Are you asking me to join your? Why are you asking me that? I'm nervous to even answer that because I feel like however I answer it, you're just waiting for what you want to say next, and I don't know what it is. So for all of those reasons, it's disingenuous, and because of that, it doesn't work. You're going to get ghosted. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, by the way, Colin, I
yeah,
don't know if you can go back one slide and then there's no photo. I don't know if you took away the photo,
I
but
just
if
said
I got a message from a
no. I
blank
took away the photo.
profile
No,
photo,
I took away the profile. You can ignore that.
yeah. So hint
I,
hint, if you're watching, ensure you have a good profile photo or
yeah.
a profile photo. You can't be messaging people, with a mask over your face. Nobody does that, right? Are you gonna rob a bank? Are you gonna rob me? Right? That's what
Well,
it feels like.
I think yeah. Yeah, but no, that's just for design purposes. I wanted to take away the names and stuff like that. Anyways, we talked about this last week. Just kind of a you know refresher for anyone that maybe missed that. Um, this is the when it comes to marketing, you want to think about this like a funnel. There's awareness, consideration, and conversion. So we started the conversation about how do you generate awareness, and now we're kind of trying to hone in on how do you create consideration. How do you try to once you are aware of somebody, how do you effectively increase conversions and optimize around controlling the frame to open up dialogue to make it so people actually consider your offer, consider having a relationship with you. And I find that the equivalent on LinkedIn is thinking about this like a funnel. You have a LinkedIn campaign where you're sourcing people, you're trying to open up conversations with talking replied and connecting with people. Then you're trying to drive a conversation, nurture it towards talking something serious, and then eventually trying to see if you can get them on a discovery call at the right time. So what I want to hone in on, and why most people fail at this, is they're not very good at transitioning people from talking replied to serious conversation. That's
Mm.
the skill. How do you make people, what's the strategy involved in making it so you can reliably open up conversations and nurture them into a serious conversation? Doing what you just did naturally. What are the mechanics to get good at that? Because the examples that we just saw are what most people are struggling with. They're not thinking about it to open up a dialogue and drive it forward, and that's ultimately what we want to talk about now like, how do you do that? What are the mechanics associated with doing that? So it's important to pause and let's just say, well, what's the goal of this area? Like, what are we trying to do? So the real goal of this stage is not to pitch. That's really important. That's what most people get wrong. You're not pitching, you're
Yeah.
progressing. This is a progression mindset. We're trying to break things out, like you said, to be able to create multiple sales touch points that progress somebody organically along a funnel, along a conversation. It's a dance. It's like something that we want to get better at, the skill of conversing on LinkedIn. So the win here is to really get a reply. It's to have a dialogue. It's not a sale. So you don't want to ask for a meeting, necessarily give out a free resource if you don't know if it's relevant. You want to not try to get a conversion, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to see if who's going to bite on their like hooks.
Offer, yeah.
So the framing here, and this is where we want to start, is how do you frame this? What's the mindset? You want to think, how could you be a curious peer, not a commissioned sales rep? You don't want to start from the premise of, I'm thirsty and therefore I need to get a conversion. It's no, you want to be good at opening dialogue with people, because if you're good at that, that's how you build trust. So let's kind of now transition into how do you get, what do you do instead? Like, so how do you do this? And I like to call this the diagnostic question strategy. You want to be able to get good at asking questions that actually go somewhere. That's the key. How do you actually get good at asking questions that go somewhere, that are not disingenuous, that are actionable?
Yeah.
Let's talk about how do you do this. So the first thing that you have to do to get good at this is it requires making it easy for them to answer. That's one. Whenever I try to train people on this, I feel like sometimes they come up with these thought-provoking questions that are a little bit too difficult. What's the meaning of life? What are your goals for this? This is another one. The meaning of life is a little bit of a joke, but one that I see often is like, what are your goals for this quarter? When you're just meeting somebody, that's a big question to ask somebody without context. They might not even necessarily know how to answer that to somebody they actually know. So you want to avoid big questions. You want to ask questions that make it easy for somebody to answer. So I find that the way to do that is to kind of always start with domain context. And we'll go through some examples of that. But, focusing it on something that's in their world, right? So depending on what their market is, what their business is, you're asking them something that is context based off of what you understand about their market or industry, right? So you're opening up an opportunity for them to share their opinion on something that, is somewhat curious based off of like who you're targeting. And it's important that you have to ask them something that they'll know offhand. So it's not a matter of asking for personal information. It's just like diagnostics. Like, what are your thoughts on this or that? So why does this work? Well, relevance. You said that at the beginning, relevance, right? That was the main takeaway that you had, that you said originally. And also that's what Dale Carnegie, like all these, when you want to be relevant to people, you want to make it easy for them to have a dialogue. You're also personalizing it. You're making it easy for them to reply. And the goal in the micro conversion here is to just open the conversation, break it up into multiple pieces. So what are some, let's go over some like now, because this is kind of high level. What are some examples of this? Now I want to preface this, we'll go over them, but there's so many different ways to do this. And I always like to say, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So if somebody is a buyer or interested in what you do, it doesn't matter your frame, your message template. It's a matter of your framing. So here's just I'm going to give you 4 examples of questions that I've used that based off different target markets, and you can react to them. But the goal is to kind of understand how I'm opening up the dialogue. So, hey, James, I saw you're in the employee benefit space. Curious if your team works mostly with early stage or more established companies. So the goal of that question is to kind of do diagnostics on, what size companies do they work with? Because that's relevant information for us to know whether or not they're a good fit for what we're doing. That's one. Second question. I've been seeing a lot of workflow gaps around employee onboarding, wondering if that's come up in your world lately. So
Mm.
it's a diagnostic question. Now, that doesn't mean that this is the only thing I'm saying. Depending on, I'm reacting to maybe their connection request. Maybe if they said something. But once we get a connection request, I'm trying to open up the dialogue by asking a diagnostic question and inviting them to share. Maybe they say, yes, that is a problem that we're experiencing, or no, we use this software to do this, or you're right, it is in the last company I work with, but this company is a lot better. The goal is to try to get diagnostics and make it easy for them to react to what you trying to drive the conversation toward. So another example, this one's a little bit more relevant for maybe me or you. Just asking someone, are you currently using Sales Navigator to organize your outreach? It would be helpful for us if you're looking for like lead gen support or personal branding. Do they use Sales Navigator? Are they familiar with it? Have they gotten any value out of it? These are real questions that are relevant for us to be able to open up a dialogue. Another question, any overlap with ADP Workforce Now in your existing clients? So,
Yeah,
you know,
what's that? Sorry,
so,
ADP.
so that's a good question. So one of my clients has an integration with a specific type of software called ADP Workforce Now.
Oh, okay.
ADP is a payroll company. So my point is, if you are working with a very specific thing, right, you might want to call that out if you're targeting certain types of companies. So, LinkedIn outreach, automation, Opus clips, editing, whatever it is, you want to maybe call out to say, especially if you're working maybe with service providers, right? Do any of your clients use Opus clips? Do any of your clients
Mm.
have struggle with this? Are you using this? These are all diagnostic questions that even if the answer is no, you can still pivot. It's okay for them to say no. You could try a different angle. You're searching for problems, situations, diagnostics that will
Yeah.
help you identify where they're at in their business. And that's why this is a skill. Ask questions that actually go somewhere, not like what you saw before when somebody asked me, are you in a professional networking group? It's like, I don't even know how to answer that. And like, why do you want to know that? And if you look at my profile, you kind of see that maybe I'm trying to start a networking group. So
Hmm.
they're not asking questions that actually go somewhere. They're actually ruining their frame from my perspective. And instead, trying to personalize it. So, what makes questions work? Let's kind of run through this. Well, one, we said we want to make it relevant to them. We want to make it easy to answer quickly. We want to make sure that it opens a thread, not closes one. And fourth, it reflects real interest, not bait. That's the key one. I'm never telling people to be manipulative or disingenuous. The goal is to actually be genuine, have genuine curiosity to be able to ask something that reflects a real interest. And the beauty of doing this is if you kind of started from the premise of your sourcing leads yourself by either free LinkedIn or paid LinkedIn, by the time it gets to a talking reply, you would think that you have real interest in talking with them or learning more about their business. So, breaking this out over time actually makes it pretty easy to look at their profile, look at their past posts, and really think through, well, what can you ask that opens up an actual dialogue?
Dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, cues from the profile is major. Like, what do they post about? It's not all work. It's not all business. Sometimes it's something personal. Like, I had a client. He had a trip to Europe, and he posted pics from his trip, and he got really really good engagements. And so that would be a great conversation opener because he's with his family, his positive memories, something maybe he can share things that were funny, things that he's seeing for the first time, and you could ask questions about those,
Yep.
and find some, create some comfort in the interaction before going into pitching. So
It also just helps you be signal amongst noise, because if you look at something and it can point out something that you saw and why you thought it was interesting, it's a
mm,
sincere compliment. You're asking a sincere question that person would look at you and you would stand out amongst everybody who's doing what we did what we showed at the beginning. That's
Yeah.
fishing at mass, and all you have to do is to say, hey, it looked like you just went to this place. I saw this. How was it? Or I've been there too. Did you go to this place?
Yeah, the simple things, Colin. Like the world is so messed up that if you do the basics, you stand out. It's like
Exactly.
saying good morning when you enter an art, you know, enter an establishment, or saying good afternoon, or saying greeting the security guard, saying good day, you know, and referring to them by sir or ma'am respectfully. Those very simple things that our grandparents used to do, they help you stand out in this day and age. So you're saying that do the simple things
Yeah.
on LinkedIn in
Yeah.
conversation. Okay.
And if you source good leads that are active on LinkedIn, and then you do the simple things, you wind up being able to build a pipeline around your network by having lots of serious conversations. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to take calls with all these people, right? We're not talking about transitioning prospects off of LinkedIn, which we'll talk about next week. Like, how do you do sales? This isn't sales. This is an art of opening conversations authentically and then trying to open threads, not close ones. So you have lots of different serious conversations going on where you're actually building rapport and relationships with people. Um,
Yeah.
so look, here's I just want to throw out some other options because I feel like it's really important to just run through lots of different options because again, it's not about the templates, it's about the mindset associated with this. So the first one, this is what you just said. I just saw your post about certain topic. I'm in the same space and really appreciated your take. Curious what led you to focus on that area, right? So I'm purposely being broad just to kind of show you how you could, personalize something and open a conversation. Saw you're building in the B2B SaaS space. Any go to market challenges right now? Right? Depending on what they're posting about it. It looks like they just launched. This would be a really great conversation opener where you can identify somebody who has a product that is launching soon based off of what they're posting about, and then trying to diagnose what their go to market challenges are if you're a service provider. You mentioned working with mid market teams. What tools are you using to keep outreach efforts organized across reps, right? You're trying to diagnose what tools they use, diagnose where they're at with their sales team. Do they have a sales team? How big is their sales team? Those types of questions are helping you diagnose relevancy.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed your recent post on leadership styles. Curious what types of people you usually work with. This is one that if you're reaching out to people in the personal development space or coaches, you're going to get a response because you're pointing out things that they're talking about and then asking them what type of clients they typically work with. So it's easy to get somebody to respond to that. They might say, hey, I work with this type of client, right? Now you are trying, now you've done diagnostics to kind of open up forward. Great. And then you can have follow-up questions. Notice you lead a small brand studio. Curious how you manage incoming leads across channels. Any internal systems you find useful, and then appreciate the connection. I'm spending more time lately helping people build stronger digital reputations. Curious how you're approaching networking on here lately. Right? It's just conversational and opening dialogues, and the truth is you can automate this in terms of your own actions if you think about micro conversions, but you can't really automate this at scale. You don't need to. It shouldn't be. It's actually easier like if you just do it somewhat manually and you have genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
So
Intrigued. So Colin, curveball here.
yeah,
So sometimes let's say you send a message like one of these, and somebody just responds, "Oh, I'm not interested." Like it's a little off-putting because
yeah,
you're asking them a diagnostic question,
yeah,
but their old response is, "I'm not interested," because maybe
yeah.
they think they're assuming that you're pitching them on something. So how do you handle that? Is it on them for being somewhat of a LinkedIn jerk, or is it on us that there's something on our profile that is off-putting that might suggest that we're a pitch
So
monster or a pitch
yeah.
geek?
Well, first of all, that's why it's very important to approach this where we're not pitch slapping. So I'm purposely not trying to pitch. I don't pitch. I don't even think about pitching until I meet somebody and I do diagnostics on whether or not I always feel like we're mutually feeling each other out, right? So if somebody said that so prematurely, look, there's always going to be some negative people. So it's fine. Then they're revealing themselves that I don't want to work with them anyway. But,
Yeah.
you know, this is kind of the next segue. The middle is where trust lives. So the idea there of what you just described is, there's not trust built. That's okay. This is the other thing that I think people don't really understand is that to transition something from talking replied to serious might take time. And that's actually a good thing. So you'll find that some people will answer great because, immediately they'll give you a lot of information that it makes it real easy to drive that towards serious and say, hey, here's what I think about this. Why don't we get on a call and talk about it more? Right now, all of a sudden, that was like very quick going from talking replied to serious conversation. But the situation that you just suggested might mean that it's going to stay in talking replied for a little while. And that's fine. I wouldn't classify that as a serious conversation if they're getting negative. I would spin it and say, hey, I'm sorry, I was not trying to pitch you at all. I, try to build relationships with people on here. But, I wish you the best of luck and I look forward to following your journey. And then see if you could reopen a conversation at a later point in time. This is really key to understand. Just for the audience, for context, I've booked clients on podcasts that have taken literally like 10 months of building rapport and relationships. People think that conversions happen so quickly, but you got to understand the market conditions of what it is that you're doing, right? Like some businesses have busy seasons and then not busy seasons. So for example, going into the summer, some businesses are not very busy. Some businesses might be really busy. It's okay. There's conditions here. So you might be building relationships for the fall, right? So I like to think about this as more
Differences.
as like quarterly, right? So you're building up a pipeline, you're building up relationships, you're building up conversations that allow you to think about to be a little bit more in control. That's okay. Some people just need time. So you're not forcing it. Not every conversation is meant to convert instantly. So if you still felt like that person was an A or B, you could pivot, wish them well. And then if they're posting over the next couple months, you could like their stuff. You could, reopen a conversation a little bit later. Again, not pitchy, just wishing them well. Asking like, hey, I saw your post on this. I hope you're enjoying your summer. You're just building up touch points to then get to a place where if they start warming up to you a little bit more, then maybe you could transition it into like a networking call to introduce yourself to make sure that they feel like you're not. You can even make a joke and say, hey, I know that maybe you got the wrong impression, but now that we've been, had some back and forth, I would love to, if you have some time over the next few weeks, I would love to meet with you quickly and just introduce myself, put a face to a name. I promise I won't pitch you. Right. At that
Yeah.
point, people like to network. They just don't like to be pitch slapped. So you got to read each situation and, like what I said, the longer someone stays in serious conversation, the easier the conversion will probably be when the time is right. Especially if you're playing, your cards right, where, what you just said was revealing. It means that that person is not a buyer right now. Fine. It doesn't mean that they're never going to be a buyer. So you still want to, if it was still like the right type of person that you were sourcing, it's like, how do you kind of get them on your side or, track them?
Yeah. Win
Yeah.
them over just a
Yeah.
little bit
So
and separate yourself from the
it kind
masses.
of leads to here's like to wrap this up. Here's the point here. It's like, you got to play the long game. Pays more because if you keep sending out all of these mass outreach conversion type messages, you're leaving so many potentially good relationships. You're killing your frame and your reputation in doing that. Whereas organic networking builds brand and pipeline. So I can't tell you how many times for clients or myself, you have all these serious conversations. You kind of become the person that they want to talk to. So at that point, when you feel like it's the right time, to get them on a call and you ask based off all the goodwill, it makes it higher conversion because it comes from higher relevance. The person kind of does want to know you. And so I think the key formula to kind of walk away from this to really like hone in on like how do you get good at this is targeted prospecting, what we went over a couple weeks ago, paired with intentional actions, which is what we're talking about today. And then if you're willing to also throw in some thought leadership content so people could get to know you through video or writing or just kind of learn a little bit more about you, it will equal inbound opportunities. When you ask for something, they will say yes, or they will just preemptively say, I want to learn more about what you do. I want to meet you, which helps you actually build not only brand, but networking. It helps you build more serious conversations, more calls, more conversions. It puts you in control versus what we went over at the beginning, which is what most people do, is just outreach, asking what they want. Can I get on a call with you? Or I'm willing to get on a call with you. It comes across so desperate that you're not really maintaining the frame. So that's kind of the main takeaways. So here are the 4 tips that I'll leave you with for office hours today is that, make sure that you're at least asking a relevant question, right? We saw at the beginning that the questions that I'm not saying all of them didn't ask questions, but the questions weren't a relevant question. It was asking for a conversion or asking about something that was hard to answer because it felt like a pitch slap. So ask a relevant question, personalize the experience using their profiles and posts, something about them that you could do to actually personalize it. Don't push, progress, and then follow up over time, not pressuring. If you could do these 4 things, you'll be very proficient at transitioning talking reply to serious conversations, which allows you to acquire the skill set of networking on LinkedIn.
Nice. And eventually get to the conversion, which is what, everybody that is.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, next week, what I want to do is to start that conversation. We have been right now focused a lot on going back to our marketing funnel awareness. And then today's the consideration. Next week, we can move towards the conversion, which I know is what everybody wants, right? There's tactics around that as well. But at the right time, if you have a serious conversation, you do want to start transitioning them towards a conversion. That is the goal. You do want to make money, find clients, get more followers, find collaborative opportunities. That is what LinkedIn is made for. So we could kind of start transitioning the conversation towards, well, what do you do to, once you have a serious conversation, to transition them toward a call? What do you say on the call? What are the tactics involved in that? How do you present your offer? But what I like to say is people are focused so much on this, and this is actually where the skill set comes in. If you can find people and get them to consider you, then this becomes a lot easier, right? Because you've already built the rapport. So they're like interested in what you have to do. At that point, it's just a matter of maybe negotiation and, is it the right fit for both of you for a wide variety of reasons that may or may not be in your control based off of your business, your offer, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's pretty good, Colin. Hey, you put it in a format that I can steal. Nice PowerPoint. Yeah, those are great points. I'm excited to see, just that 3-step funnel, of awareness, consideration, and conversion makes it so much simpler to comprehend. I kind of instinctively knew, there's some kind of a process to it, but putting it down in a graphic like that, I think helps a lot. And or watcher on YouTube, we hope it's been helpful. All right.
Yeah. Well, look, going back to what you said about Dale Carnegie, Dale Carnegie does a lot of the same things, how to win friends and influence people. It's about understanding oftentimes more so what not to do and why than necessarily always doing the right thing. That's one. And then 2, it's also a matter of understanding the frame in which you do the things that you have to do, like doing it at the right time. So it's a lot about micro conversions and then understanding maybe what is detracting people that I find that people don't really think about. That is what he talks a lot about in that book. You know, how to present yourself with good first impressions, with confidence, in a
Yeah.
way that allows people to feel like they are, um,
Safe.
yeah, safe. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well said. Well, so let's start giving out free copies of this book. No, I'm sorry. It's not that podcast slash web show, but the book can be found on Amazon, and so get a copy. And if you listen to it on YouTube, still support the author and the foundation. Get the book. Colin, when are we writing our book?
I have feel like one day I'll tell you stories. The amount of stories that I have of situations that I find that I have been in through my networking journey. Let's just say Zoom rooms that I have been in with people in different cultures talking about different things has been, I like people and I like networking. So I find that is like a blessing. But I have a lot of stories, let's just say, of oftentimes being in situations where I'm just like, how did I get here? Like, what is happening? What is happening around me? I have a lot of stories. Maybe one day I'll put it into a book. But for now, at least, those stories are just for me. They're
Okay.
still happening, to be totally honest.
No.
Managing people around the world and putting people together in rooms cross culturally, which is what LinkedIn allows for because it's a global platform, um, is fascinating. There's a lot of interesting kind of cultural differences, let's just say, that I've learned through the years of doing that.
Mm, yeah, well said. I'm looking forward to hearing some of those stories in future episodes. We could maybe
Yeah.
start off with a story or two. What do we call those? Adventures of Colin Simon on the LinkedIn, on LinkedIn or on Zoom. Like we'll think of something, but until
Yeah.
then, it's
Um, one day, we'll hold off of those stories for another day. But yeah, uh, I look forward to next week. We're going to kind of morph into conversions, and really talk a little bit more about transitioning prospects off of LinkedIn, because to me that is the start of sales. I think that what most people think about is sales is outreach. And I like to say that your sales shouldn't even start until they're off of LinkedIn. You've identified a good prospect, had a serious conversation, and then set up your framing in a way that now allows you to, uh, control the frame and transition them into a sales process. So next week we'll talk a little bit more about that. And yeah, I look forward to that conversation.
all right, Colin. Hey, see, I wish we could close out with some great music, but we're still working on that piece.
Next
So
week.
until
Next week.
then,
That's
yeah,
your homework. That's your
that's
homework
my
for all. Yeah, you're gonna hit it to the DJ now.
okay, Doc. All right, I'm out. Bless.
Uh,